for joining us today. This is the third watercolor workshop that we're offering for the spring season. We've done snowdrops, we've done daffodils. Today we're going to be doing tulips just as they're finishing up here in Connecticut. Make sure you're comfortable, make sure you have everything that you need around you. And again, I just want to thank everybody for coming today.
Welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to be teaching this. I always do a lot of prep.
We lost you.
Classes. And let's get started. So we should make it so people can see this in their screen.
You want me to spotlight that?
Yeah, let's spotlight this. Okay, that's great. And I've set my phone so it shouldn't go off. I'm just looking at my phone. It says, should I join the audio? And I know I don't want to do that. So you're going to work in whatever style you want to work in. So if you want to make a very loose, simple tulip, it will look gorgeous. If you want to make something that is a bit more detailed, what I did is I've got this great sticker book and I found these stickers of parrot and Rembrandt tulips. You can work like that. It's fine. Tulips are very simple shapes, so it's easy to fold them. I always have to put a little origami in with origami, but I mean, this looks like a tulip. I think when they're together in the wreath, it gets a little confusing, but that's okay. And I also have this really looks like a tulip, but let's actually look at a few real tulips. Oh, I need to get my tulip cup. So they're rounded. They're like a cup. They come in this huge variety of colors, like the daffodils. There's that 6 structure. You can see it. Can you see like they're the 2 intersecting triangles? Can you see that in the middle? And there are going to be 3 petals on the inside and 3 on the outside. And no matter what the color of the tulip is, or if the petals are all fancy and frilled, that is what the tulip is going to look like. And this idea of the cups for the tulip, I'm making sure that doesn't knock down. So this is from Antiques, and what do? Tulips as cups. I just thought that was so amusing. And of course, if I look at catalogs for tulips, just this range of colors. So you really can explore your different colors and really do a lot of experimenting and have a lot of fun when you are painting your tulips. Now, before I forget, now would be a good time to get some water on your palette. I have a spray bottle. If you don't have a spray bottle, you can use a dropper. You can just do it with water, but you want to get your paints wet. And you might not, especially if you have as many colors as I do, you might not use them all, but they'll just dry up again. And in terms of not getting your paints too muddy and opaque, it really works better to work with a color that's been dried out and then gotten a little wet than to work if you're working with tube watercolors. If you just blob it out and it's fresh, you'll end up getting too much paint. It will be too thick and it will be muddy and it won't look like as nice and watercolory. Corinne, do you need to use my squeeze bottle? I don't know.
No, I just use drops from a brush.
Drops from a brush.
You said that was easy, so that's what I did.
And the other thing you can do if you have a water brush, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this so it shows. You can squeeze it and get your water to come out that way. Oh yeah, that was very dramatic. So my water's in my brush, and these are a lot of fun to work with. If you have one, great. If you don't have one, you'll do just fine without it. So, are there any questions or comments? Okay, let's pop you out of the way. What we're going to do is we're going to start exploring how to draw a tulip and the leaves with paint. If you want to make your leaves, these are leaves, those are not leaves, and your tulips separately, you can. If you want to make them together, you can. And this is a chance for us to think about a lot of the different watercolor techniques and think about the different colors we have that we're going to work with. So let's get a decent size paper. And so when I used to teach elementary art, people were always afraid, I can't draw, I can't do this. Well, the nice thing about a tulip is if you know how to write, if you know how to print, you can draw it, because what is this? It's a U. What is that? That's a W. And if I put the two of them together, I've got myself a bit of a tulip.
That's so cool.
Is that, and here is a D. Here is a long skinny D. Or I could just say a straight line and a curvy line. So that's looking pretty tulipy, isn't it? While I'm here with something in dark pencil, I want to remind everybody that if you're going to draw something first when you're working with watercolor, it's not a good idea to make it dark with pencil. Actually, this is not showing up on my screen that well. If I don't want to see that dark pencil, I don't want to do it with watercolor. I'm using dark pencil because I want to make sure you can see what I'm drawing, but you can just as easily draw with the brush. Now at this point, I need to get one of my scrap papers out, because one of the things that I try to do with watercolor is I make my first mark on my junk paper. This lets me know that my brush is not overloaded. So here's that leaf shape. Oh, the stem's a straight line. So that is the simplest. I want to have 2 things of water. I realize I just interrupted my sentence. I want to have 1 thing of water that's going to stay pretty clear for washes. And I want to have another container of water that I'm going to wash my brushes in, because I don't want to have to keep on changing my dirty water. I want to have something relatively clean. So there's the leaf and the stem. Cleaned out my brush. This is going to be a red tulip. That does not look like enough color, so I'm going to pull some more color from it. Brighter might be nicer, but this is good enough. So there's the U. And I'm going to get a W in, and I've got a tulip. So that's just painting it straight. Let's all just do a straight tulip. Nothing fancy schmancy. I'm going to do another one so I can give you a chance to actually paint one. So I'm going to pull up some green. Everybody should
Louise, does it matter what brush we're using?
Yes, it matters what brush you're using.
We're actually both using the same brush.
You should use a brush that works well for you. So you should be able to make thin lines and thick lines. Corinne pointed out, although my brush needs to be glued together.
But we're both using a Polar Flow 700R, I think is what.
So what I would not use, you want a brush that you can control and draw with. What I would not use is a brush that looks like this, because I'm not going to get tulipy shapes.
And probably not anything that's like super duper fine either, because
Exactly.
It's going to be hard to fill in.
So when
color.
Right. So if I'm working with a brush like this, I'll be able to get beautiful thin lines. But I really have to smash it down to get something thick. These brushes are good for other things, but it's just a little, there's not, let me show the 2 brushes together.
Does that
you can see the
for
difference
everybody?
in size. The other thing is I don't have too many, you don't want a brush doesn't come to a point. I'm trying to hold this. This brush doesn't seem to want to make a point. And a brush that won't make a good point. So you should be able to do like this, and there should be a point there. This sort of makes a point, but it's got a spiky thing. I want something that's going to hold the point. I think I was answering that way too much. I hope you began to paint. I'm going to.
No, it was good. Thank you.
But I mean, with painting, it's extremely sensuous. You know, that paint is flowing on, that color should be beautiful. You should be enjoying, you know, you're stroking it. And this is a good time for you not to explore your palette. You don't want to use the same, I mean, I don't know, if you want to use the same color again and again, go for it. I'm the kind of person I want a lot of different colors. And I want to see what they do. That's not very centered, is it? Don't worry if it's not perfect. I really am gonna have to put this brush aside. I think maybe I forgot to wash it overnight and it was stuck in the water, but so I'm getting rid of a brush because it was too jiggly and I didn't like it. So everybody's done a plain simple one, right? Yes. Yes. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to make a yellow tulip. Actually, I'm going to make 2 yellow tulips. That's a little hard to see. Let me use a different. Okay, that's visible. And then I can see I need to get closer for this. That's better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I want to have my first tulip. I want to do wet into wet. So I'm going to get some red paint. It could be any color that you want to see mixed with the yellow. So I'm going to get some red paint. Even though I just painted it, it's not wet enough. I don't want this to be a harsh line. I want it to be soft. So I'm just putting water on my yellow first. And now I'm going to let it flow. So that's blending. And I'm going to do the same thing with my, this will be fun. I'm going to, I didn't plan on that happening, but I kind of like that. So here's my leaf. Let me quickly do another leaf there. And let me add some water to make sure I'm going to get wet into wet. And now I'm going to get a very dark green, but I could use it. I don't have to use a green. This is one of my favorite greens. It's called shadow green, I think. And it's still, even though I put extra water on, I've got a nice soft edge there, but it's not blendy enough. So I'm going to use some water to let it blend in. And here I want to make sure that I've got a very, very thin So what you're not seeing, because it's off screen, is you're not seeing me make my marks. I want to make sure I've got a good thin line, because I want to have one part of my stem not as thin as I would have liked it. And then I will add more water to soften the edge. So here what I'm doing is I'm putting down my color, keeping it as wet as I can, but if it's not wet enough, I can add more water. So instead of just doing plain, I'm doing a wet into wet soft edge on one side and a hard edge. This is probably nice and dry. And this time I'm going to use some blue. And I can paint colors on this, or I can draw on it, but this I want to have be linear. And I think I am going to switch to my teeny tiny brush, because I know I'm going to be able to get a more controlled line. And before I paint the tulip, I'm going to add another letter. I'm going to add Y's. I'm going to add thin Y's. So you know what I'm going to do with the Y's, I hope. I am going to get some more paint on my brush. Interesting. So what I would like you to try to do next is to work with more than one color in each thing. So whatever color you put down first for your tulip and your leaf, if you let it dry, you'll be able to get lines. If you keep it wet or re-wet it, you will get blended, soft, wet into wet edges. And that is what I'd like you to experiment with next.
Just in time check. It's 11:24.
That's good. So in both these techniques, you put a base color down and then you add something else. you use the water or the dryness to control what it's going to look like.
Hello? This is Corinne, her daughter. I'm good, Suzanne. My mom is actually teaching a class right now. But I can have, let me go see if I can grab him. I'll be right back.
That is actually not a junk call. That is our friend from Texas. Oh my goodness. So not only does Corinne run the meeting and make sure that the technology works correctly, she's our secretary. What a kid. Oh, so I'm not getting quite enough of a point on my brush, and I don't like the way that one that I just painted looks. I don't like this one. If you have a decently clean rag, watercolor can't really be erased. And actually it's good for me to show this technique. This one was wet enough, so I was just able to blot it and make it a shadow of itself. If I put clean water on this, yeah, he probably went for a walk.
Okay, I'll let her know.
Let's see if I can,
Hi,
yeah,
Suzanne.
I can
She's
definitely
on a walk, so he
make
is
it
not-
not look
I'll have him give you a call when he gets back.
as dark.
Hope you're having a great day.
You know, it would be better
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
not to do
supposed
stuff
teach in a class for
that
an
you
exam
can't
work that
do.
I'm supposed to be moderating.
you know, that,
Sorry.
yeah.
Have a great
I'm
rest of your
listening
day,
to
though.
Corinne on the phone and I can't even
Bye.
begin to. All right. Thought
She-
process.
She obviously
This
wanted
is-
to know why I was trying to jump off the phone.
This is pale enough. So if I let this dry and I put a good strong dark there, it won't look quite as ugly as it was looking to me before.
I see I missed something good.
Yes, I made two stems that were way too thick. You know, and not everything, I don't know about you guys, but not everything I do is as perfect or as good as I would like it to be. And if I can make it better, I do. And if I can't, it's get a new piece of paper. You know, I don't fuss with it. Yeah, that's a little thinner. I'm going to assume everybody's had time to do that. Yes. I want to show one more technique. And I think there's a real name for this, but I taught it for so many years when I was teaching school, and I just sort of invented my own name, and I call this pulled work. So I'll demonstrate it and then you guys can do it. I'm just going to do a tulip because you already know how to do this. You don't need to see me do the whole thing. So I am going to do, I can do a half tulip. I can do a whole tulip. and I do it in dark paint, intense paint with a line, and then just using water. This is why I call it pulled work. I pull out the color. So another way of talking about this is I'm making a gradient. So here's my water on the inside, right? There's no color. And then as soon as I touch that line of paint, I can pull the color. And there's something very satisfying about this dark to light thing. If I don't think it's dramatic enough, I can always add a little more. You know, and I added the same color, but, you know, if I want to add a little more of another color, I can also do that. I could pull that in or not. That is pulled work with the color first. I can also do it with the water first. Now I make sure and get water from my clean water. And this one, I will use the leaves. So you can just barely see the water there, right? And then I'll pick a green, any green. Let's see if I can make a thin stem. Of course, I can't really see where I put the water, but I can also do it that way. And then I can continue to spread it, add more color. That's not looking as if there's quite enough color in there, so I'll probably add a bit more. And that's what I call pulled work, and it's yet another way of playing with the colors. So I'll do one more of these without talking as much, and you guys will do one. Huh, that's not dark enough. That's never going to get dark enough. That's going to be dark enough. I think that we all have colors that we naturally gravitate to, that just appeal to us more than other things. And especially since we don't have to worry about being super realistic, it's important to explore those things. Or if not important, at least fun. One of the things I realized is that you don't need a very fancy palette. Any box that hits our fat is ready for the recycling that has a white inside. I've been using those boxes as palettes and I love it. They're working quite nicely, and yeah, I really like the thin line I can get with that water brush. And the other thing about water brushes that I'm very fond of is you can squeeze the paint out of them. They're a bit easier to clean. I may have to add more color to that because the yellow is so pale. That's dramatic. Are there any questions or comments? At this point, I'm assuming people are fairly comfortable with the mixing the different colors together, wet and dry, pulling it to get a pulling it to get a gradation, and you're beginning to reacquaint yourself with your palette. Again, I want to show my example that I worked on, where I'm just trying all different kinds of things. You want to be very free and not worry about what you do too much. That being said, and you can do this with a pencil, or you can do this with a thin brush. Let's talk a little bit about how do you actually draw a tulip if you want it to be more realistic. If you don't want to make your tulips particularly realistic, that is fine. But I want to talk about, what am I thinking about? What am I doing? And if you have one of the examples of tulips from my Facebook page, not my Facebook page, my Pinterest page, or something like that, it will make it easier. And I am seeing I do not have a good drawing pencil. Corinne, do you have 2 drawing pencils in your station? Yes, you do. You have like 4. And you might not even,
Well, you're the
I
one
like
who
these.
You're the one who put them over here.
I can't believe I used to teach groups of 28 students and had materials out and organized for all of them. So if I want to make a more realistic tulip, instead of thinking about that flat U, I'm going to think more about an oval. I'm changing this because I'm doing this and I can see I'm not really going to have room for the stem. So let me make sure I am in my screen. And let's do this oval again. So here's the oval, here's the stem. I don't want my stem to be straight because that will make it unnatural. For the leaf, when I'm going to actually draw it, I want to feel that first leaf. Here's my second one. And even though I know that there are,
You mean petals? Not
yes,
leaves?
I mean petals. Even though I know there are 6, I sometimes don't always draw 6 because it gets too crowded. It gets too crowded. And then if I want it to look a little bit more realistic, I can add shading. So I can use that dark edge to make a little shadow when I'm painting. So you already have some techniques for making the shading. The other thing that I can do, let's get a shadow on here, is I use contour lines. And that's something that is easy to do if I want to make Rembrandt tulips. I'm getting my Rembrandt tulip examples. Oh, this is great. So this is a little small, but you can see the dark lines on the petals show me how my tulip shape is 3-dimensional. And this is a good example showing the tulip is pooching out here, and there's a red line pooching out there.
That's a technical term.
Yes, pooching out is a technical term. So the design of the tulip, the patterns on the tulip help show us how this is a 3-dimensional shape. And contour lines don't just exist in tulips. If you look at my wristwatch, it's curved because it is going around my round wrist. If you look at, my students used to love this. If you look at my wrinkles on my hand, they're not straight lines. They're rounded because my fingers are 3-dimensional. They're not, you know, flat like a piece of paper. So if you imagine this 3-dimensional shape that you are creating on the flat paper, if you feel the roundness of it and express that roundness with the lines that you make, you can begin. That's another technique for making your drawing, your tulip look, or anything that you draw look more realistic. If you want to do that, great. If it's not interesting to you, don't do it. Just keep on painting with different colors. And I'm going to do another time check. Oh, we're doing great.
11:45, 1 hour and 15 minutes to go.
I feel I'm going too fast.
Well,
Louise, would you do that drawing again, the one you're filling in?
I
We-
will do
We
it.
stink and we're slow and we want to draw what you just drew.
All right. So, you don't stink. That's, I'm sure you all
no negative
showered.
self-talk, please.
When you were
Okay,
making,
we're slow.
when you are making things, it's important to look at it and assess it and do constructive criticism. Like, this is too thick, I need to make it thinner. That's okay. it's not okay to say I stink, because that doesn't get you any place.
Yeah, it's not gonna help.
So here's an oval. Let's make another oval. I'll have to figure out how the overlap goes. Then I'm going to do the straight line. I'm doing doubles, so I'm sure that it makes sense, even though a real tulip might not exactly look like this. I want to make my tulip more cup-like. So I flatten the bottom a bit. Yep, that's what they look like. And I choose a way of arranging the petals. I want to remind everybody of those three petals on the inside, three petals on the outside. That actually looks quite a bit like the drawing, doesn't it? And I'm not drawing this specifically, but because this is the structure of a tulip. But this is why I love doing this stuff, because my yoga teacher, who Corinne doesn't like that much, is always saying, well, it's true, you don't like her that much.
Don't need to share that.
This is
I
going to be
like her.
recorded. This is recorded, you know. What if she watches it?
It's okay. She's got big shoulders. She's got broad shoulders. So I'm looking at this, and what I don't like about this is this looks like mountains. It looks like it's all flat. So there are two ways that I can change it. One is change my drawing. Get this a little higher, and I want this part of the flower to be in front and that part to be in back. So I'm going to make a little tiny little triangle here, showing me that this petal starts here and then rounds to the back. And this petal starts here and rounds to the back. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of shading. And that's going to push the front of the tulip towards you and let the back of it recede. I will also, in addition to the shading on the inside of the tulip, I will put some on the bottom, fiddle with my stem, and that's looking a bit better to me. So constructive criticism, what's in front, what's not in front. Is that better? Is that clearer?
Thank you.
And if I decide to add the designs of a Rembrandt, these are Rembrandts and not parrots. Parrot tulips have got the designs, and they've got, I'll do one. The parrots have got edges like that, which are very cool, but make them a lot more complicated to draw and a lot more complicated to make look realistic. I actually have parrot tulips on my pants, and they're cool, but they look really flat. They look like a big mess. They don't look three-dimensional at all. I'm going to stop doing that and work on my leaves. You can out damned parrot tulip petal. Some tulip petals are very wavy, ribbony. You can make them bendy. Sometimes towards there are smaller ones that clasp the stem. So there are a lot of different things you can do with the petals if you want to do something that is more realistic. But it's easier if you have something to look at. That's why there's a lot of stuff on my Pinterest page.
Which everyone should have received.
And that stuff is also in the PowerPoint that I sent you.
Everyone should have received that as well.
But it is not necessary. You can make a perfectly lovely picture without doing something that is particularly realistic. For me, the softness and the freedom of just being able to do something like that, you know, there's a kind of a joy and a flow in that really has a lot to recommend it. Questions or comments? Okay, so what we're going to do next is you're going to figure out what kind of a tulip picture you want to make. If you have time to make more than one. Actually, there's one question I wanted that was asked last time that I wanted to talk about. And the question was, what size should it be? And no surprise, this I don't like at all. And this is about 11 inches by 10.5. Oh, I will talk about how to make a background. There's probably time to do that. This is really too big. This just looks dead and ugly to me. This, you know, it's not good enough. But when I looked at that and thought about how much I didn't like it, this is 5 1/4. Don't I use a ruler beautifully? By 4. And this is just much.
That's tiny.
It's tiny, but I'm much happier with it. Although looking at it now on the screen, I can see I'd like to go back in there and, you know, do a few lines in there. This one's a little bigger, 7 by 5-ish. For these paintings, I find working a bit smaller feels much better to me. But that being said, you have to do what feels good to you. I mean, at one point, Alex Katz was doing those giant flowers that were, I don't know, at least 10 feet tall. So I want to quickly talk about how to do a background. If you want to do a background, you don't have to. It is your choice. Corinne, do you need any more paper?
Nope,
You're in
I
good
grabbed
shape.
some.
All right. So you can paint your stuff. Oh, I happen to have some tulips right here. And go in with water. Right, so this is a do what I say, not what I do. I use my dirty water. And it made a little yellow. I am not touching the flowers. I want to be able to control my edge. And then I pick a color that I think I might be happy with. This may be too light, but then I can work with it and then go very gently up to the edge. And I would keep on, this is going to be a bit darker. No, it's not. Okay. Oh, that. And I would keep on adding color. There's like nothing showing on the screen, huh?
Yeah.
No, we can see it.
Yeah, that's looking like a little more. There's definitely a difference between what I see on my paper and what's on the screen. The one thing I would say is be careful if you want to preserve the hard edge of your flower, paint with some care as you approach the edge. You know, and if you make a mistake, get a nice clean rag and pat it. You know, you've already made a mistake. Don't worry about wrecking it more. Do what you can. So that's one way of getting a background. Another way of getting a background is with a thin brush and a color that you know will work well with what you're going to do. Interesting, not quite enough water there. Draw what you want. Or you could do it, if you don't want to do it with a brush, if that's not comfortable, do it very, very lightly with a pencil. If you have a hard time doing it lightly with a pencil, yeah, that's very light. You can barely see it. You can do it with a colored pencil. The nice thing about the colored pencil is it's easier for a yellow line to be integrated into a water, or a light blue line or a red line to be integrated rather than a graphite line. Now that is, I can see that's not showing on the screen, but I can see it. And then I can, without painting in my tulips, you know, you guys know where I'm going to go with this, right? Paint the background first. And you can paint the background any colors you want. The one thing I would say is the more that you think about it and plan it, if I want to make a bunch of yellow tulips, a yellow background might be a little too subtle. It will be yellow on yellow, right? You know, maybe that's something that's going to look good, but think about how you're going to think about what the end result's going to be. a yellow tulip in front of this is going to look very different from a purple tulip. So let's figure out what you want to make for your composition. If you want to make a background, make a background. If you don't want to make one, don't make one. If you want to make something realistic, go for it. If you want to be more, I'm just going to make a bunch of tulips in nice colors and very simply, whatever you want. Questions, or should we just go? I got an idea when I was talking about this, so I'm going to make a little, I'm going to blot this so I don't totally wreck it. And I'm going to make a little frame on this. So I've got a nice border, and then I'm going to make a yellow background. And I'm going to make a yellow tulip and a purple tulip. And I also have some guys that I got ready that I thought I would color in while we are all working. The time is 12:02. So we've got a bunch of time. Does anybody have any questions about the background stuff? I tend to prefer a softer background so the flowers can shine, but could you make a really cool picture with a really intense background and really intense flowers? Sure. A really intense background and pale flowers. Why not?
Louise, is the idea that if you don't do a background that it doesn't look so finished?
I think the ones without backgrounds look great. Let me
It's just so it's just personal
it's
preference.
personal preference. So let me pull some of these guys down so I can put them in front of. So there are two guys with backgrounds. The frame on this is too pale. It's in pink. But other than making the frame stronger, I think this looks fine without a background, especially in watercolor. The white of the paper is very lovely. So it really is your preference. And I think that the very realistic ones, well, this looks fine with a little soft background. So you really have to decide what you're in the mood to do, how you want to spend your time, what feels good to you. There's not this is not like a portrait where you get the nose wrong. You know? It's a good question. All righty.
I saw that.
That looks strange.
Cool.
A little weird.
A little weird's good. When I'm working on stuff, I try to let it talk to me. You know, it may sound a little strange, but it's the sensation that if I look at it, it will tell me what needs to be done. What has become a happy accident and what is looking like it wasn't cared about enough. Oh, that's why I can't find my stuff. During the last workshop, we talked about how using watercolor paper really makes stuff a lot easier because it absorbs the paint very quickly and it can take a lot of water without, it'll curl a little bit, but it's much, it has a durable quality. All right, that's a little too soft. Go back there later. So when I'm doing yellow and yellow, those are the same color, different versions of the same color. When I'm doing a purpley color, that's the opposite of yellow. And of course, yellow is a very light color and purple is a dark color. So I'm going to get a lot more contrast. I realized as I was doing my frame that one of the things that people don't always know, and if you know this, great, but if you don't know it, it's good, it bears mentioning, is if you want to make a smooth edge, as long as the paint isn't wet, you rest your hand on your paper. If you can't rest your hand on your paper, you rest it on something else. I'm using a ruler. You can use paintbrush, but you drag the brush. If I push the brush, it's going to be harder. Unless I'm doing Asian painting, it will be harder if I lift the brush. But if you drag the brush, it is much easier to control the line. So if you, and you don't want to, like, let me get some more paint. You don't want to be pushing into something, pull back from it. If you want a smooth edge, you don't always need to have a smooth edge. But if you want a smooth edge, if you're having problems with crispness and control, those are two hints that might be useful. I think that the other one I was working on is done, but whether or not it's actually finished, I know I can't really see it anymore. So I'm going to work on something else now. And sometimes, even if something isn't finished, sometimes it's time to put it aside and wait until your eyes are more fresh, when you can figure out what's happening. So sometimes I have a hard time drawing really well, or sometimes I have a hard time drawing during a class because I'm a little distracted. So I did get some stuff ready, and you can see I established some shading, and now I can add my local color. Local color is it yellow? Is it red? And the shading is what's happening to the reds and yellows because of light. So my skin is the color of my skin. It's this color where the light hits it, this color where there's less light. And of course, there's also all kinds of local color stuff happening because of the various moles, freckles, and bruises, and a lot of venation showing right now, and probably a few little messy bits of paint at this point in time.
Time check, it's 12:25,
Right.
so we've got about 20 more minutes
Right.
of
Well,
painting.
we'll work for about 20 more minutes, and then we will show and tell. If you need a break, now's a good time to get up, get a drink of water, walk around. Make sure you're not hunching your shoulders forward too much. That's a real problem, right?
Yeah. When you're painting. Do you like it?
I do. I like the bright colors.
It looks like a heart.
Right? Very cool. Do you want to do more? Do you want to
Probably
color one in or give it a rest?
Give it a rest.
Give it a rest. That's. There's water paint on the door. Oh, wow. I don't want to lose the definition in my stem, so that's why I gave it a bit of a blot. I have too much artwork here.
5 more
Everything
minutes
too.
now.
All right, this is everyone's 5-minute warning or reminder. Warning sounds way too harsh, doesn't it?
Okay, everybody, we have about 5 more minutes left for painting, and then we're going to be sharing our work and final thoughts. Dr. Flax is washing brushes, I think. She walked away anyway.
Yes, I was washing brushes.
Good.
I wanted to make sure to get that done. Every once in a while, I get disorganized and I don't remember to wash my brushes and they're just sitting there in the water. And you know, like overnight.
Yeah.
And
they
that
can get a
makes me
little-
feel quite annoyed with myself.
All right, ready, Mom?
All righty.
We've got a chat. Monica said in the chat, oh, do we have plans to offer classes over the summer? We're working on it. I mentioned this, I think, at the beginning of class, Monica. So I don't know which camera to look at. So basically, we're really just trying to figure out, everything is changing very quickly with the COVID rules and regulations. So we're trying to figure out if we'll be able to offer classes in person at the museum. And if we do that, what the right way is to also potentially share them on Zoom as well, if we want to do them hybrid. We're hoping to have classes in July, August, and September. We're going to be taking June off just because it's a good time for us to try to figure out what's going on with these regulations. But hopefully, if it's not Dr. Flax, because you might have noticed that she's my mom. I don't want Dr. Flax to be the only teaching artist that we're working with, so I'm trying to expand that roster a little bit.
But
So-
there is actually another very nice Village Creek artist who's done classes at the Bruce, Eddie Nino, who also lives in Village Creek, who lives in the same community as I do, and as do some other participants.
He had taught some lovely acrylic workshops at the museum, so we might be having him come back. There's also a landscape artist who's been sending me a lot of emails who I might be working with. There's also Nancy Stock McTague, who had done some printmaking workshops for us. So we might have her also come back and do some in-person printmaking. So there's a lot of options. I have to narrow stuff down right now. So I'm sorry I don't have a straight answer. But I think that this is probably a good time for us to start thinking about sharing our work. So I'm wondering, so Dr. Flax, you've shared a lot of your work today. I'm
Yes.
gonna unpin her. Which one is that? Louise Flax. So there's Dr. Flax on Spotlight. So I'm wondering who is interested.
Corinne,
in
why
sharing-
don't, you should start,
just
you
start?
sis, you should model
Okay.
this.
I
And-
will model how to do this then. Here
And
we
the
go.
thing I want to tell you is you are not the people who are being judged. It's me. Did I do a good job teaching you?
So this is the work that I've created. I was a little distracted today because I was trying to moderate at the same time. I think my tulips looks a little bit like a human heart, which probably wasn't the intention. But I had a lot of fun making it, and you can see I used that dark line technique here, which I thought was a lot of fun.
I like the way it leans, and I like that orange background. I like the orange background.
I used
like
orange and yellow to do that. So that's like, these are like a creamier kind of yellow area. And I did actually that same thing where I put a lot of dark pigment and then tried to like pull it across the
That's
page.
one of my favorites. There's something so satisfying about that.
So I'm just gonna run through everybody. So you're not gonna have a lot of choices. Irene, I am going to be making you the spotlight for everybody. Just can you unmute yourself, Irene, so we
And
can hear you.
Irene, I love your plants. Let me go to speaker view. Oh, nice. So free.
So Irene, we can't hear what you're saying, but it looks great. You're muted, Irene, unfortunately. You can unmute yourself if you want. Give me a thumbs up if you want to unmute yourself, or a thumbs down if you're not interested. Okay. All right.
Looking good. Looking good. I love, look at all the difference in the values in that tulip. That tulip is so three-dimensional. Looks great.
I love the parrot tulip on the right too.
Yep. And I love the green. That's such a beautiful, soft blue green.
Thank you so much for sharing, Irene. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
put Anne up there.
Oh, lovely.
So simple, so delicate, and really.
And
great
we're
work.
leaning on the other way, right? There's Corinne's leaning this way, you're leaning this way.
Oh, thank you so much. Sylvia, I'm gonna put you up next. And you guys can feel free to unmute yourself so we can actually hear you talking.
Hi.
Oh,
So I have
Love it.
3 tulips standing in front of different colored backgrounds, and 1 tulip that was late to the party and was trying to get in and couldn't make it.
I love the dots. I love this.
And you know I had to get blue in there somehow. So,
So playful.
When I do a background,
thank you.
I go towards ultramarine blue. It's like,
Just an automatic thing.
yeah, if I don't force myself to do something else, I'm thinking, why am I doing this blue back? But it looks great.
All right, Alana, you're up. Ta-dee.
Oh, so nice. Look, oh, they
So many
look
different
like they're
heights.
so happy together. I love what you did with the greens and the different shades and values. It's just so nice.
And I think there you can really see how it doesn't need a background to be finished. Like that piece does not need a background to be done, I don't think.
No, you don't need to do a background.
A background
in
is
something
lovely,
like this.
But
I mean, you frequently with botanical drawings, there's no background.
that's true. I am gonna be putting Layla up.
Here I am. Well, this is the 10th one, so I mean, I've ripped up everything else. So where are we? I don't know. Where are we?
Right there.
Can you see what? Where? I don't know.
Oh,
Where,
I love just holding.
We can see it.
I don't know where.
I love what you did with the colors.
Oh, I was so desperate.
That purple.
Well, I was
I
desperate.
love the spatter. That's a technique we have never done.
Anything to deflect.
Layla, don't. Hey,
Wait.
Don't be so tough on yourself.
I know.
No, don't be mean to yourself and don't let other people be mean to you. This is being recorded.
Except for your
so
daughters, which is fine.
I'm not going to use strong language because this is being recorded, but this is something that one of my Tai Chi students said to me. And it's true. Don't be nasty to yourself. Be kind. And the number of times I've done something, I'm thinking that didn't look so good. And I look at it the next day and I thought, well, maybe it's not so bad. Don't give yourself a chance to really, even if it's only figuring out why you didn't like it so you can be different next time, if it's really not that good. Try to be
Alright.
kind to yourself, nurture yourself, because who else is going to do it?
I'm gonna put Adrian up
And Rachel.
and Rachel, but I didn't know Rachel's name, so I didn't say it. You can unmute.
Unmute yourself.
Yeah. It's a different way to unmute yourself. Okay, we went for some quantity. I won't say over quality here, but this is my, well, you go ahead. Yeah, I'll go first. This is my, and I did this too. And then Rachel, show yours.
Again,
Go.
Adrian.
Corinne and I want to look at the
yellow
Rachel,
one.
you go away. Make Adrian. Adrian, you have to be a student now. You can't just be
Look
a
at
teacher.
that. Look at how you did the pulling technique.
And the
I
West.
tried.
Hey.
That was that. And I did this one too. I'm telling you, there's a lot of quantity here. That was when I was trying the background technique. These were my first tulips, so maybe my second tulips were a little bit better, but I didn't do a background. And then I did this.
But you know, you don't have to. And one of the things that they say to teachers, I should tell everybody that Adrian is a teacher, is that
I am.
very important to try and do things that you haven't done before. And
Yes.
you're not good at. Because
Come out of your comfort zone.
you don't know what it feels like to be a student.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Rachel, now you
Hey,
can.
Rachel.
Thank
Well,
you.
first I did a drawing. And then,
Excellent.
oh yeah, progression. I did that.
You
Look
learned
at all
all the
those
different
textures.
techniques, and notice the one on our left, the pale pink tulip. She's done a technique we didn't talk about, which is that dry brush where you feel the texture of the paper.
And then I did that one.
You're dancing.
They
I love
are.
dancing
They
tulips.
are. Oh, so nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the class. Oh my God, so fun.
Julie, you are up.
Hello.
Oh, nice. Oh, so nice.
I really like how you let almost like the white of the paper show through in some places to give it that three-dimensional feel.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Oh, just, I love the different purples.
And the different angles on that one like kind of
Yeah.
bouquet.
Yeah,
that's
and
lovely.
you did the small leaves, which I didn't talk about much, but excellent, really nice.
And I think our last person up is Monica. I think.
Oh, very,
What a great ground you made.
yeah, I love it. It's a little hard to see because of the light behind you, but that's what I'm seeing there. I love,
I tried to work with your techniques in each one of the tulips.
yeah, well,
Really fun.
I'm just each tulip I'm looking at it and seeing, oh, look at those nice leaves. Look at the green with the yellow. Look at the, I guess, orange red on top of the yellow. Look at the purple. It's wonderful. And that being said, is all these techniques are things that you can use for everything that you do in watercolor. You know, it's not just, oh, and it will make a tulip. You can do it for anything.
So we have just a couple minutes left. I don't know if anyone has any last thoughts or questions. Otherwise, we're going to say goodbye.
Thank you for the class. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much. We had such a good time. It was meditative almost for a period of time. We didn't even talk to each other. We were just in a painting zone. It was so nice.
Just go with the flow, right?
Yeah, that we did. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for participating. Thank you all
I don't
so
know
much.
how.
We're gonna say goodbye.
Bye, thank you.
Oh, I had a good time today. I
Thank
really did. Thank you so much.
We
for
had a
coming.
great time. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.